right, welcome back, everybody. It is time for your Spotlight on Now. And Raucus has the next one because you're going to be chatting with Rodney Taylor.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm chatting with Rodney Taylor. He's the new Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, and he's here with us this morning via Zoom live from Barbados. And Rodney Taylor he's gained a great deal of experience working in the trenches, and now he's at the forefront of the digital transformation in the region. Good morning, Mr. Taylor.
Be here.
Hi, Mr. Taylor, you hearing me?
Yes, can you hear me as well?
I can hear you perfectly now. Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I am great. So, first of all, tell me, what does the Caribbean, the CTU, what does the CTU exactly do?
Right, so the CTU was established as far back as 1989 to develop harmonized regional policy in relation to telecommunications. And then subsequently around 2003 or so, with the convergence of information technology and telecommunications, the focus was changed to include all information and communication technologies. And the idea is to harmonize ICT policy and legislation regulation amongst 20 of the CTU member states. We're now at 20 countries, including CARICOM, of course, CARICOM countries, plus 5 other countries that are not within CARICOM.
All right, so let's dial back a bit before we get to all 20 countries and how we're going to transform that digitally. In terms of Barbados, I know that you guys would have launched a Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology. And what role did that ministry play in being able to transform the public services to a digital format?
Right, thank you. So for clarity, I will be coming to Trinidad to take up the position. I've already started, but I'm working remotely with the COVID restrictions and what's not. But the CTU is headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago, and in my role, I represented 20 countries. Prior to taking up the position of Secretary General, I was the Chief Digital Technology Officer in the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology. That ministry was a new ministry formed under the new political administration led by Prime Minister Mia Mottley, and that was in 2018. So prior to COVID, the ministry was established to help drive Barbados' digital transformation. Of course, with the advent of COVID, as you mentioned in the prior segment, it has accelerated now the push for the delivery of public services in a digital environment. And it's logical because there's no, the access to physical services or access to offices with all of the restrictions has become more difficult. So there's been a push to establish things like the application for driver's license, police certificate of character, and many other services online in an online environment. And it's not just government, but private. You see this in the private sector as well. The push for online banking services, even for the delivery of food and goods and other services. So that has been the plus side to COVID.
Definitely, and we've been seeing it happening over and over again. Tell me, in terms of I'm mostly interested in the public side of it because I know that for some time there's been some resistance in the public sectors with regards to going digital. Was that transformation difficult in a place in Barbados, for example? I know even though you started before COVID.
Change is always difficult, but I think our citizens now expect it because they're logging on to services like Amazon and they're accessing Google and Apple Store and these things, and they recognize that there's a better way of doing business rather than taking time from work and standing in a line for 2 hours to apply for whatever government benefit or service. And so there's a demand now, especially as the younger generation comes up, and it's like, why do we have to stand in line? Why do we have to fill all this paperwork out? So there's a resistance, only because there's always a resistance to change. This is a natural human response. But within the public service, there is a demand. There is, at the political level, there is support. At the administrative level, there is support. And more ministries are asking for their services to be placed in a digital context or digital mode.
Right. And with all these services going online, how important is security in this situation?
It's absolutely critical because if citizens don't believe that their data is protected, if they believe that there will be a breach of security and their confidential information or personal information is leaked, then they will not access or will not use the service. And of course, there's the issue of embarrassment and reputational damage to government. And so in conjunction with the promotion of digital services, Barbados has, and many other countries within the region are looking to develop and have started to develop national cybersecurity strategies. They've also passed data protection legislation, not just because there's a global initiative, well, EU initiative, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations, that has sort of pushed many countries towards a more robust data protection regime. And so Barbados has passed the data protection legislation, and many other countries are seeking to do that to ensure that we protect our citizen data.
Okay. Well, I think this is going to be very interesting time that we're living in. I know that because you guys started that ministry, well, when the ministry started, it would have been before COVID, like you said. But I assume that there would have been a timeline to get things on board and going forward. And COVID would have accelerated that a lot, would you say?
Significantly, and that's across the world, not just in the Caribbean or in Barbados. It has definitely, and some studies have said, is advanced by 7 years, 10 years. The digital transformation of economies around the world. So that's definitely the case. In Barbados's case, as I mentioned, in 2018, the ministry was established, and right away the Prime Minister secured $40 million from the IDB, specifically to transform the public sector and to promote digital services. There was about a 4 or 5 year timeline, but since COVID, there has been definitely an increase in the drive to implement services. But everything takes time. And so you stand up the services that are most in demand, and you continue to build on that infrastructure until you have, kind of universal digital access to government services. And
that's the goal, right? To have full universal access?
100%. That's for sure.
All right. So with regards to the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, is there a plan already in place going forward to make that happen?
Well, heads of government, as far back as 2017, agreed to the establishment of Single ICT Space. The CTU has embarked also on an initiative called 21st Century Government. And that is the idea behind 21st Century Government, is that we bring government into the 21st century. And so there are various initiatives, and one of the key components of that Single ICT Space is the elimination of roaming within the region, and to create that one Caribbean space, so that as you move with your data, especially mobile data, then there's no charge as you move from country to country. And we see this as one of the fundamentals of building this regional digital space.
And how does that work with regards to having private sector entities? Do they come on board, or would it be competition for the public sector trying to take away this roaming service and all that stuff?
Well, no, we're working with the telecoms operators to ensure that this happens. In many cases, it is really one regional network in any case. So you're really roaming within the same network. We know the big players within the region. We know the flows, the cable and wireless, the digicels and so on operate one network. So there is no competition per se. We're all seeking to move towards one common goal, which is the development of the ICT sector within the region, and we believe that this will help to advance that.
All right, and tell me, before we wrap up, what role do you want us, the people on the ground, to play in this transformation in the region?
Well, continue to demand more from your government, ensure that governments deliver as they have promised to deliver. Your input with respect to what services are needed, how we can improve public service delivery or aspects of the service. In any case, the services are established to serve you. So your input as to how you want that service delivered, and we call it is more or less a citizen-centric focus. So government should never deliver a service or create a service and say, here it is. It should always be developed in consultation and with the participation of the citizens. So the average or the man on the street, so to speak, should always have an input into how services are developed, how they are improved, and government should always provide an avenue through which you can do that.
Fully agreed, and thank you so much for saying it. I want to thank you as well for joining us this morning, Mr. Rodney Taylor, the brand new Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to you coming down to Trinidad at some point. Maybe we can do this again live in studio. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We're going to transform the Caribbean. Universal access for all, public sector services access for all, and no roaming in the Caribbean. I look forward to it.
No roaming in the Caribbean.
That would be the day. That would be. I think
Yeah.
it's possible because, like you said, all the big players are. We know who the big players are as
Yeah,
long as
the
they
thing
get
is-
on board with the government.
Yeah, but we have the technology for it.
Of
you
course.
know? But I think the roaming thing, I think it's a business thing as well.
I mean, of course it's a business thing, but if there's political will, then we can find ways to make it happen. And it seems as though the governments are on board and heading towards the future full speed ahead.
I mean, of course. I mean, but the thing is one thing having the governments on board, but when it comes to the private sector and the ones who profit off of it, how are you going to get them on board?
Because they can still profit.
But maybe not as much. So how do you convince them to take some dollars out of their pockets?
But they might profit more. And that's the part we're not realizing is that there's always other ways to make profit. It's not just the ways that you're accustomed making profit.
Of course.
And COVID has shown everybody that. And that's what we're talking about. When you're talking ICT and you're moving towards the Caribbean, it's a matter of saying, all right, well, this is how we're moving forward. And these are other ways that we can source revenue and source income.
Very true.
I think it'll be a very interesting time. It'll be an interesting time ahead. I look forward to it and see what's going to happen. And you can look forward to more right here in the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this.